We're live. Arik, you can start now.
Should I start?
Yes, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's session organized by Economics Study Center on data analytics for budding economists. Data analytics is the third most popular skill for the job sector. In the 21st century, data has become widely accessible, but only a handful of us know how to analyze and process them. Moreover, as students, we often do not know what data analytics entails. So the session will likely to cover some information and guidelines for the aspiring economists who are interested in the sector of data analytics. Now, it's my immense pleasure to inform you that the session will be led by Mr. Sakiful Alam, Program Manager, Trust and Safety, South Asian Region, TikTok. He is also a Commonwealth Scholar at the University of Singapore. His primary research area lies in innovation and application of machine learning in business strategy. Now, without any further ado, I'm now handing over the floor to Mr. Sakiful Alam, sir, for conducting the rest of the session. Thank you. Sir, your call.
Thank you so much, Arik. And thank you so much for the introduction. So I actually have a slide deck to take the session. So let me directly start sharing my slide. Yeah, there you go. So let's start here. So, sorry, I do switch between our windows a lot. So first of all, a big thank you for everyone for inviting me to this session. And I hope in next few hours, I do justice of such a big topic, I would say, and something which is very broad, but at the same time, it's something Chitanaki, I believe, is going to be very important because as Arik put it, analytics is actually one of the top third required skills out there. And not only that, at the same time, data science and analytics is something that is being implemented in many, many fields right now. It used to be in AI and computer-related industries, but now, today, it has been implemented in social media, in search engines, in e-commerce platforms, and even in medicine, in epidemiology, in many, many, many other fields. So hope today I get to show you some of the ways we can work with data, some of the data we can collect. And so moving forward, a little bit about me. So yeah, that's me on a happy day, specifically in front of food. So I am right now the program manager for South Asian region and TikTok. Besides that, there is this company in Bangladesh, Intelligent Machines. I'm their analytics advisor. We work with AI, machine learning, and all other things. At the same time, I'm a Commonwealth Scholar for National University of Singapore. And finally, I'm also a trainer and a consultant for analytics and machine learning. On a personal level, I am but at the same time, I am a gamer and a Potterhead, huge Harry Potter fan. So moving on, why this whole thing about data? I mean, let's try and figure that out. So how do we, when we say data, data wordটা use করি, আমরা যদি একটু চোখ বন্ধ করে চিন্তা করার চেষ্টা করি, what do we see in data? প্রথমত নাম্বার ভেসে আসে চোখের সামনে, তারপর ভেসে আসে যে একটা structured with a number store করা. In fact, we sort of see a scene like this, an Excel file or a spreadsheet যেখানে we have columns, rows. In the columns, we have variable names. In the rows, we have numbers. The fun thing is this used to be data in like 10, 15 years or even 20 years back. Today, the data looks very different. But this was popular because this two-dimensional data sets, they were popular, and spreadsheet actually revolutionized the field of data in history because it allowed us to structure data in a very simple way. যেমন এই ফাইলটা যদি আমরা কিছুক্ষণ তাকিয়ে থাকি, আমরা বুঝবো যে এই ফাইলটা is about someone যে নাকি লোন নিচ্ছে. There is funded amount, loan amount, কি কারণে লোন নিচ্ছে, যেমন বেকারি, কোন সেক্টরের জন্য নিচ্ছে, কোন দেশ, বুর্কিনা ফাসো, কত টাকা চাইছে, পুরো ডিটেইলটা এখানে আছে. তো ডেটা এভাবে স্টোর করাটা is very easy, was very easy. এখন আরো easy, but yeah. And the computers or the processing power we had was capable of analyzing this data easily. Today, this is no more the case. This data is just one of the many other types of data that we can collect. যেমন this. Already different জায়গায় আমাদের একটা কনসেপ্ট থাকে যে বিভিন্ন রেস্টুরেন্টে গেলে কিন্তু অনেক সময় একটা কিউআর কোড দিয়ে দেয়, যে কিউআর কোডটা স্ক্যান করলে চেক ইন করতে। তারপর অনেকে এখন কিউআর কোডে মেনু দিয়ে শুরু করছে। ছবি, এমনি জাস্ট যে ছবি তুলছি আমরা, সেখান থেকে অনেক ডেটা পাওয়া সম্ভব। Data is not only limited to just an Excel file today. Data is anything. It can be pictures. And not only pictures, picture থেকে আমরা পিক করতে পারি। ধরুন আমাদের যদি আজকে একটা স্মার্টফোন থাকে, স্মার্টফোনে যদি গুগল অ্যাপটা থাকে, গুগল অ্যাপেই কিন্তু এখন ওরা ইমেজ ডিটেকশন ক্যাপাবিলিটি রাখলো, যে আমরা যদি ক্যামেরাটা অন করে একটা জিনিসের সামনে ধরি, সেটা ডিটেক্ট করে বলার চেষ্টা করে গুগল যে এটা কি জিনিস, অ্যান্ড এটা হয়তো কোন জায়গায় কিনতে পাওয়া যাবে। So data is now not only numbers or text, it's also pictures. And that's not all. This is a picture of a supermarket. I mean, data is not supermarket, but data can also be just human behavior in terms of video. Because what is a video but a collection of pictures? So say আমরা যখন একটা সুপারমার্কেটে যাই, সুপারমার্কেটে তো অনেকে যে সিকিউরিটির জন্য যে ক্যামেরাগুলো থাকে, সেই ক্যামেরাগুলোতেই they can track your behavior. They can track যে মানুষটা ঢুকছে, ঢোকার পর এই আইলগুলো থেকে খুব তাড়াতাড়ি জিনিসপত্র কিনে ফেলছে, এই আইলগুলোতে সে অনেকক্ষণ দাঁড়ায় ছিল, মানে হয়তো চিন্তা করছে কিনবে কিনবে না, কিনলে বাসায় মায়ের খাবে কিনা। So thought about that, decided maybe not to buy. আবার কিছু জিনিস আছে আইল থেকে কেনার পর চেক আউটে যাওয়ার ঠিক আগে আবার হঠাৎ ঘুরে এসে আরেকটা আইলে রেখে দিয়ে যাওয়া। দ্যাট মিনস যেটা কিনছিল কিন্তু লাস্ট মোমেন্টে মনে হচ্ছে যে মেবি নট আ গুড আইডিয়া টু বাই দিস। আবার এটা অবজার্ভ করা যায় যে আইলগুলো যদি আমরা চেঞ্জ করি, আজকে যদি চালের পর ডাল, ডালের পর মাংস রাখি, তাহলে কি মাংস সেল বাড়বে? বা মাংসের পর পোলার চাল রাখলে সেটা কি সেল বাড়বে? So all these, just videos, these are all data. So today, data is many things. It can be just numbers, text, expressions in my face, pictures, video. And these were, I won't say that many human being কিন্তু এটা যে ডেটা, মানে ভিডিও যে ডেটা হতে পারে সেটা আগে চিন্তা করে নাই, তা কিন্তু না। It's just that previously we didn't have that processing power to tackle images and videos. Today, video analytics is very, sometimes if you have a good laptop, you can pull it off, or there is cloud computing and many other things that can handle even video rendering, video analytics, image recognition. All these things are possible. And that's why data analytics is such a big talk at this point, because suddenly we humans see that there is data everywhere. Left, right, up, down, there is data everywhere. And we also see that we have the machines, we have the processing power capable of handling that data. And this is so interesting because we are on the verge of this whole concept called quantum computing. And quantum computing will increase our processing power immensely. But even before we go there, we are still capable of handling so much. That's why this whole field of data coming up. So now how companies use data. আমার টাইমের ইন্টারেস্টে আমি প্রত্যেকটা এক্সাম্পলের থ্রুতে যাব না, বাট একটা লোকাল এক্সাম্পল নিয়ে ডিসকাস করি আর একটা ইন্টারন্যাশনাল এক্সাম্পল নিয়ে ডিসকাস করি। প্রথমত আমরা যদি লোকাল এক্সাম্পল দেখি, লেটস লুক এট দ্য লেফট ওয়ান, পাঠাও। সো হাউ পাঠাও uses data. One of the things that got পাঠাও, মানে if you remember how পাঠাও came to the market, it came at a time when we had Uber, and Uber is an international giant. And yet পাঠাও not only survived, it did quite well. How? What helped them? Pathao started with a very good data team. And one of the usage of their data was ওরা একটা algorithm use করতে, যেটাকে বলে graph algorithm. They use the graph algorithm to accurately connect riders to people who are asking for a ride in the shortest distance, in the shortest price possible. In a market where the market was served by an international giant like Uber, Pathao survived because it solved two problems. One, একটা গাড়ি জ্যামে অনেকক্ষণ ধরে আটকায় থাকে, and yet একটা বাইক ফাঁকফুক দিয়ে টান দিতে পারে। দ্বিতীয়ত, cost effectiveness. Pathao was always cheaper than Uber. So this is an example of how data can help. They had lots of location data, they have lots of customer data, they have lots of people's demand data. সেটা দিয়ে তারা গ্রাফ অ্যালগরিদম দিয়ে সবচেয়ে নিয়ারেস্ট রাইডারকে নিয়ারেস্ট কলারের সাথে কানেক্ট করা at the most efficient price. That's what they used. Amazon uses data in a very interesting way. If you look at Amazon's history ছিল এটা একটা অনলাইন বুক শপ ছিল, সেখান থেকে it's right now, I mean মানে Jeff Bezos is the most richest person in the world. So how? Because what they did is they used data to do some simple things. Actually, let me give you a short idea of what they used with data. So আজকে যদি আমি Amazon-এ যাই and say I'm eyeing to buy this new book. It's called what was the name? Oh yeah, it's an economics book. Charles Wheeler, Naked Economics. He explains economics in a very funny way there. So আমি যখন এই বইটা কিনতে যাই, we have ratings, authors, and all these details. But then খুব interestingly, we have this thing, frequently bought together. And also this thing, customer who viewed this also viewed this item. And শেষে সবার শেষে যদি scroll করি, we have the reviews and everything. তো এই যে এই দুইটা, যে frequently bought together and customers viewed this also viewed. These two functions make use of data very simply. যদি প্রথমটা বলি যে how they make use of this data, খুবই simple. What they do is তারা দেখার চেষ্টা করে যে কয়জন এই বইটা কিনেছে, and তাদের মধ্যে যারা যারা কিনেছে সবচেয়ে কমন নেক্সট বই কেনাটা কি ছিল। And it was like this, the same author, Charles Wheeler, Naked Economics with Naked Statistics. Achha. The next one, this one is another very ingenious way of finding the data. So what they do is, এখানে কেনার জন্য কিন্তু আমার একটা প্রোফাইল খোলা লাগে, যে হ্যালো খান। So আমার ফার্স্ট নামে প্রোফাইলটা খোলা আছে। So they know that, this person who's like this Khan guy, সে কোন কোন ওয়েবসাইট দেখতেছে, কোন কোন পেজে টাইম স্পেন্ড করতেছে, কোন কোন পেজে সে ক্লিক করতেছে, কোন কোন জিনিসের রিভিউ পড়তেছে, কোন কোন পেজে সে থাকতেছে না, আমার এসব বিহেভিয়ার দিয়ে ওরা এটা রেকর্ড করছে। আর এই বিহেভিয়ারটা ওরা অন্যান্য মানুষের জন্য রেকর্ড করছে। তো when I go to Naked Economics এর ওয়েবসাইটটা, ওরা বের করার চেষ্টা করে যে আচ্ছা আমার মতন বিহেভিয়ার ওদের ডেটাবেজে কি কি আছে, এন্ড সেখান থেকে ওরা বের করার চেষ্টা করে আমার একটা বিহেভিয়ারিয়াল টুইনকে। So they try to find out another Khan, not exactly named Khan, but another person who has similar behavior like I do. And actually not one person, they find out similarity wise আমার কয়েকটা একটা গ্রুপ অফ টুইন কে বের করার চেষ্টা করে। Now when they have that group of twins, সেখান থেকে ওরা বের করার চেষ্টা করে যে এদের মধ্যে সবচেয়ে কমন পারচেজটা কি ছিল, and that was still again naked statistics. And that's why they are suggesting this. This is a unique case where both the books are same suggestion. যদি আমরা একটু বইটা differently দেখি, let's look at cartoon book of statistics, I think. Yeah, book of stats. Okay, let's just go to one book, say Star Draw Your. So here you see that product details are here, more items to consider. This actually comes from that twin finding. So this is how Amazon makes use of data. And what happened is, real data দিই, Amazon এই upselling এর through যে revenue-টা পায়, যে profit-টা পায়, that is the one that drives them to be one of the richest companies in the world. Simple use of data. So till this point, do we have any questions? Arif, are we having any questions in the live our broadcast?
Let me check. No question for now, Abhay. You can carry on.
I think there is a question, is there any difference between data science and data analytics? So from the chat, I found that question. So yes, there is a difference. So data analytics is about getting insights from a data set. Data science is a much bigger field. Data science has 5 aspects. It starts with collection, designing and automating the data collection system, to preparation, storage, where we are using cloud computing or cloud databases like Amazon Web Server, Google BigQuery, Azure, to store the data sets, to pipeline the data for processing. So process core, clean core, analysis এর জন্য নিয়ে আসা, processing যেটাকে বলি বা pre-processing বলি. Then we have analysis, where people are actually analyzing the data to find out insights, which is the data analytics part. And then lastly, we have communication, which is communicating the outcomes of the analysis to the stakeholder. This whole field is data science. A part of it is analytics. Another way to look into data science is analytics mostly deals with day-to-day operational issues and maybe short-term analysis, whereas data science is about building models of prediction, building deeper models where we can lead to much deeper insights. Acha, we have another question from Farzeen Mumtahana. There was a controversy about how accessing users' data without authorization of the user. This breach of privacy is an overarching issue in tech companies as a whole. Even though this is the type of not the topic of the session, could you briefly discuss how the practice could be stopped? Again, you pointed out very nicely that this is not the point, like this is not the place to have this discussion, because this is not a, I wouldn't say, we are not talking about this, and I'm already covering quite a broad topic, but to short this is where we also need to have regulations. See, businesses যখন data ব্যবহার করে, and again, it has not been proven, ঠিক আছে? And even if it's proven, I don't want to get into মানে এটা কি সত্য কি মিথ্যা সেটা ডিসকাশন আমি যাব না এখানে, because as you understand যে these are মানে evidence based reasoning is something we should be preferring, never based on rumors or controversies, because the word controversy basically means that it has not been proven properly. But what can we do about data security over? And there are some processes about it. One is, first of all, as users, we need to be aware of whether the companies, when they're asking us for their data, for our data, are we reading our user agreements properly? I can bet my life on the fact that 0.5% of the population reads user agreements properly. So we have to do our due diligence to read the user agreements of how much are we signing up. Second thing is, as a nation, when we become more and more digital, it is also slowly important to have regulatory bodies who check for data privacy, who check for data ethics. In countries like Scandinavian countries, there are already data ethics laws. In US and UK, there is like the big data ethics laws going on, which Actually, আমরা US বা UK এর কোনো ওয়েবসাইটে যাই, আমরা সবসময় একটা ছোট পপআপ দেখি যে কি this site will download some cookies, do you accept it or not? So ওইটা কেন দিচ্ছে? Because of the regulations that are set by EU to give these things. So that's how we need to be practice. It's not a practice, to be honest. It's a gray area because the regulations need to be formed. It's important as users to understand how much data we are also giving out. And also from company side, obviously, it would be important to respect a customer's data. I hope that briefly answers your question. Moving on. What are the new sources of data we have? I'm not going to talk about the basic sources of data that economists can find out, but I'm going to talk about the new sources of data that we can get. So one very useful source is actually web and social media analytics. The way to get it, actually, I'm going to share two simple tools here. So web analytics, if we are trying to do a research or track the performance of an e-commerce platform, then a very useful analytics is actually Google Analytics. So it's analytics.google.com. So the web analytics gives us some very interesting insights. What it does is, first of all, it shows me, so for example, this is a Google merchandise store account. It shows me, where people are coming from, where my revenue is coming from, where the conversion rates are, where like how many new sessions are coming in. It gives me an idea of my audience, like, who are the people visiting the website. Then it gives me an idea of where people are coming from. And all these details. Now, one catch with e-commerce aggregators or website analytics is you need to own the website to get that data. Now, if you want to get such a data, if you don't own the website, you can always reach out to the e-commerce platform and explain that you want to do some data collection, you want to do some data analysis for a research, and if they're okay with it, you can actually get some access. And it sounds it sounds improbable, but to be honest, I'm in researcher and I've gotten access. And I've used it and then gave that access up after the use of the research. And I've given proper credit to the company for the research. So this is one very useful source of data in terms of consumer behavior on the website. Another useful source of data is actually social media analytics. And one very useful free source of this data is from this website called TalkWalker. So what TalkWalker does is, let's just have a client login here. It actually allows you to have free accounts. So suppose I'm curious about what the whole world, the social media, is talking about a certain issue. So suppose let's talk about vaccine, one of the issues that we discuss a lot these days. So, and then just launch the search. So it gives me data on last 7 days. So in last 7 days, the whole world is talking about vaccine. Like there are 3 million mentions about vaccine. There is 15.2 million engagement about vaccines. The interaction has mostly been negative, and potential reach, the term vaccine has reached to almost 100 trillion people globally. Now, what are the top themes that we're talking about? So these are the hashtags that are being used: no vaccine, no vacancy, cancel Assam board exams, unite to fight Corona, G7 UK, stay home, stay safe, get vaccinated soon India, our country is vaccinated, postponed EAC 2021. So yeah, all these are the hashtags being used. If we want, we can also know the top themes related to the term vaccine. Here, we have vaccine, vaccination, health, number told, month, government, vaccinated, country, virus, leaders. So besides that, it shows me way more actually. It shows me actually result by result what the social media is talking about vaccine right now. So yeah, there you go. Biden administration to buy this many. So there are total of how many results? I think it's gonna go a long way. There's a lot of results here, and it shows like where the result, like what the web is talking about this topic. Then it shows the engagement, the sentiment, and all other details you want. So this is a tweet post by Kamala Harris. So which is a tweet post, which is a YouTube video, which is Twitter, news. The only thing that this tool can't see is Facebook, because as obviously Facebook takes a lot of control on the data that is being shared on them, on their platform. So, but yeah, other than Facebook and Instagram, this tool actually gives you a very interesting idea of what is being talked about a certain topic. And this itself is a lot of social media data you can gather. Now, these are few sources of like one source of data in the age of internet or age of data we call. And this type of data can lead to some super interesting research questions. If you're an economist who's planning on pursuing the research field, I would say spending some time on social media analytics is quite useful. It's a very interesting and a very, I would say, vibrant field where people are working right now. Achha. The next source of data is text. In capital letters, I wrote text because text is everywhere. You can collect comments from, comments from a product, comments from groups, comments from people. You can have audio, and using ASR, which is audio to speech recognition, you can convert audio to speech and text. You can have news, you can have reports, and you can analyze text. Again, I'll actually go and show you one super useful tool to analyze text, and that's free as well. So this is a tool which is super handy for text analytics. So let's do one thing. Let's actually get some news. Let's say news on vaccine, let's say. Here, for example, this news, Singaporeans aged 12 to 39 can register for vaccination, and there's a lot of text. So, or actually, let's do something better. Let's go here. This is actually a wonderful place to get some insights. So, for example, rethinking 2020s, that how the 2020s would look like in terms of pandemic or after COVID. So this is a detailed report on that. Let's go for, say, health first, and let's get some text here. So see what lies ahead. Okay, there's not many text here. Well, first, explore Sky World, compare pathways. So here there are some texts, but not enough. I was looking for something of much texting. Let's actually go to a news article. That's better. News on vaccine. Let's go to a news article like, say, Singapore, can we get it outside Singapore? Let's say Al Jazeera. And then we have these text. So let's select the text here. And let's paste the text here. Let's select more text. Sorry, too many advertisements. Al Jazeera being a little too commercial today. So here, and let's just paste this text as well. So now we have collected some text. All we have to do is press reveal. And this tool, it's a collection of tools actually. So first of all, what it does, it did a very simple text word frequency analysis. It's showing me which terms came in again and again, like countries, vaccines, doses, million, COVAX, Pfizer. These are the terms that were repeated quite a lot. Another very useful tool is actually this tool called Termsbury. What Termsbury does is, let's reduce the number of terms a little bit. Let's make it 35, yeah. So it says, if I click on China, so China has been mentioned once and it's not connected to anything else. Okay, vaccine, the word vaccine is connected to doses and Pfizer. So probably the document was talking about Pfizer. Africa, nothing. Pledges, far. World, nothing. Doses, okay, so lower doses, COVAX, 300, 500. So probably this document is talking about lowering, like lower number of doses available. So biotech vaccine, let's see if Pfizer is related to vaccine and biotech. G7 is connected to pledges in China. Aid is connected to according word. So it gives you an idea, like, now this is just a news article, but imagine you're going through millions of news articles. Copying them and pasting them here gives you a very clear idea of what is the theme of everything that is happening. It can be a full-fledged interview. It can be a full-fledged discussion that you can just copy and paste it here to get major patterns out. So when we have focus group discussions, individual interviews, we can just collect these text, or if it's like, lots of comments about a product, we can just copy them and paste them here and do an analysis. Another very useful tool here, let me just show that to you, is this concept of text arc. Yeah. So what it does is, if you see, it's connecting different terms one after another. So it kind of gives you an idea that, what is the theme of the whole situation going on, like what type of words are being followed by them, what other words. So again, instead of reading through all comments or all reports you have collected on something, you can just run it through here to get an idea. In fact, to be honest, for researchers as well, I would give you a very interesting suggestion if you're a researcher, is even in my research, I've done this quite a lot of times, is actually copy literature or articles that I'm reading, copy their context here to just, sit back and relax and enjoy the flow of wording here, because that kind of gives me an idea what is the theme of that article. And is there the keywords that I'm looking for? Are they here? It's a very useful tool for that. So that's another source of data, text analytics. What else? Observation data. So when I'm talking about observation data, what I'm talking about here is exactly কিছুক্ষণ আগে যে ওই একটা সুপারমার্কেট এক্সাম্পল দিলাম, যে একটা মানুষের সে শপে ঢুকলো, সে ঢুকে কোন আইলে দাঁড়ালো, সে কোন দিকে তাকালো, কোন আইল থেকে সে চটজলদি জিনিস কিনে ফেলতেছে, কোন আইল থেকে সে জিনিস কিনতেছে না, কোন আইলগুলোতে সে তাকাচ্ছেও না। All these are observation data. And this is so wonderful because কিছুদিন আগে what we used to get is purchase data শুধু, একটা মানুষ কত পারচেজ করতেছে। কারণ আমার তো শপে সবার টাইম নাই যে বসে বসে আচ্ছা এই লোকটা ঢুকলো, সে কই কই দাঁড়ালো, কি করলো, সবকিছু দেখার সময় নাই। But today, due to ability to process videos, we can actually track every single customer's journey in my shop. And what it tells me is, যে আচ্ছা ঠিক আছে, from his purchase pattern, I know that this type of person, সে এই প্রোডাক্ট গুলোতে বেশি টাইম স্পেন্ড করবে, এই জিনিসগুলো সে কিনবে না, এই জিনিসগুলো সে বদারই না। And when I know about these things, I can actually target my marketing campaigns towards not having a very vast marketing campaign for everyone, but targeted marketing campaign for people. And these observation data is not only for supermarkets, it can be. So very recently, যেরকম একটা খুব নামকরা research actually used observation data in hospital waiting lines. একটা তো hospital emergency, ER. So they looked at not ER, but they looked at the other waiting lines and যারা outpatient দেখাতে আসে, ডাক্তার দেখাতে আসে, তাদের waiting lines and তাদের behavior to optimize যে কিভাবে আমরা এই waiting লাইনটাকে ম্যানেজ করতে পারি। So observation data is another huge source of data in this age of internet. The other one is web crawling. So the web crawling or web scraping is another type of data source that is becoming more and more popular. Web crawling or web scraping basically means that collecting data from the web where instead of manually copying and pasting them, we can use a code to run through the web to collect the information. যদি একটা simple example দেখাই, let's go here and say, let's go to this website. It's actually one of my favorite websites, not Amazon, right? Yeah, IMDb top 100, top 250. Let's go top 250. There. So this is the movie database, which has, like, top 250 users, top 250 movies rated by IMDb users. Once I actually scraped this website because it helped me identify, decide কোন movie দেখবো. So when I did that, so I do have the list now. তো this data এখন কি করা যেতে পারে? একটা করা যেতে পারে যে আমি এই ডেটাটা কপি পেস্ট করতে পারি, এখান থেকে ধরে কপি পেস্ট করতে পারি, দেন এই ছবিগুলো চলে আসবে। That's one problem. আবার sometimes এরকম হতে পারে যে ডেটাটা might be, so আমরা আরেকটা যদি চার্ট দেখি, IMDb top 1000 একটা চার্ট আছে, I think. So let's just go for IMDb top 250 আছে, 1000 sorted by IMDb. Yeah, this is also very big. Yeah. So এখানে 1000টা রেজাল্ট আছে, আর 1000টা বসে বসে এখানে আবার একটা মজার জিনিস আছে, যেখানে আমি এটাও জানতে পারতেছি যে কত লম্বা, কি রেটিং, কি টাইপ, কে কে ছিল, সো তারপর মেটাস্কোর কত, ভোটস কত পাইছে, কত গ্রস করছে, অল লট অফ ডিটেইলস আর হিয়ার। নাও এটা যদি আমি একটা এক্সেল ফাইল আনতে চাই or একটা ডেটাবেস ফাইল আনতে চাই with all these data, copying it manually for 1000 is quite a pain. What we can do is আমরা কিছু প্যাটার্ন বের করতে পারি। যেমন আমরা যদি এখানে এটা দেখি, the way, because every website is designed through a HTML code. তো সেই HTML কোডটা যদি আমরা একটা প্যাটার্ন বের করতে পারি, যেমন আমরা যদি দেখি এখানে, লেটস লুক এট দিস ডেসক্রিপশন। আমি যদি এই ডেসক্রিপশনটা বের করে আনতে চাই মুভিগুলো থেকে, আমি জাস্ট এখানে আমার মাউসটা রেখে ইউজিং গুগল ক্রোম আমি এখানে ইন্সপেক্ট ক্লিক করতে পারি, এন্ড হিয়ার আমাদের বটম অফ দ্য স্ক্রিনে এখানে বলছে এই ডেটাটা আছে, এন্ড দিস ইজ দ্য লাইক কোড অফ দ্য ওয়েবসাইট। সো HTML কোডে আছে, এই ওয়েবসাইটে এই জায়গাটায় আমার এই ইনফরমেশনটা আছে। যদি আমি এটা একটু এক্সপ্যান্ড করি, হিয়ার এই যে পি ক্লাস টেক্সট মিউটেড ইকুয়াল টু সামথিং, সেখানে এই ইনফরমেশনটা আছে। নাও দিস ইজ ওয়্যার 1 থেকে 100 দেখাচ্ছে, রাইট? সো হোয়াট উই ক্যান ডু ইজ সে আমি একটা কোড করে এই টার্মটুক কপি করতে পারি। লেটস কপি দিস টার্ম, দ্যাট পি কোড কপি এলিমেন্ট পি ক্লাস টেক্সট মিউটেড। সো এখন যদি আমি পুরো ওয়েবসাইটটুকে টেক্সট হিসেবে নিয়ে আসি অ্যান্ড পুরো ওয়েবসাইটটুকের HTML কোডটা দেখতে চাই, দিস ইজ দ্য হোল HTML কোড। এখানে যদি আমি এখন সার্চ করি যে পুরোটুক কপি হয়ে গেছে, পুরোটুক দরকার নেই, আমরা কপি করব just the way this data is stored. So এই p class পার্টটুক যদি কপি করি, so text muted দিয়ে কপি করি, and let's search here. Control C, Control X, and Control V. There. So this type of text is using 200 places. নিচে যাই, here আবার ডেসক্রিপশনটা, নিচে যাই, এখানে একবার ইউজ হয়েছে, কিন্তু আবার এখানে ডেসক্রিপশনটা এসেছে, আবার এখানে একটা ইউজ হয়েছে, আবার ডেসক্রিপশন, আবার এখানে একটা ইউজ, দেন আবার ডেসক্রিপশন। সো এই প্যাটার্ন গুলো থেকে থেকে I can use either an R code or a Python code to actually pick out all the data here. এই 1000টা মুভির নাম, কবে বের হয়েছে, কত স্কোর ছিল, মেটা স্কোর কত ছিল, ডেসক্রিপশন কি ছিল, কে ডিরেক্টর, কারা স্টার্স, কত ভোট, and কত গ্রস. I can have this data set. If you don't want to code, there are some useful tools that can do that. One useful tool is something called Octopus, and Octopus does exactly the same thing. What Octopus does is it's a crawler you can download, and what it does is it actually helps you do exactly the same thing, that you can, here you can see the video there, that you can go to the URL, and then next thing is you click what you want and you press run, and the data is extracted in the third step. It's very simple. You can actually try this out. So this is another super useful source of data. I mean movie data source, not, I'm not talking about that. I'm saying website থেকে data নিয়ে আসা, that's super useful. Like there are many websites from where you can scrape the data and use that as a data set for analysis. The last thing of collecting data is actually the concept যেটাকে আমরা বলি A/B experimentation. It's very close to economics আমরা যেটাকে বলি যে randomized controlled trials, RCT. It's actually, I mean, not very close, it's actually the same thing. RCT and A/B, মানে data field আমরা এটাকে A/B experimentation বলি. In economics you call it RCT, randomized controlled trial. The idea is very simple. যে in order to establish causality, আমরা একটা ট্রিটমেন্ট করব, and ট্রিটমেন্ট আমরা একটা গ্রুপকে দিব, একটা গ্রুপকে কন্ট্রোল হিসেবে রাখবো. And a control and treatment group will not know that who's the control, who's the treatment, and they will be identical to each other. And over time, আমরা দেখব what is the impact of a treatment. In fact, a RCT was the key to the work of our very recent Nobel laureate. So, how does RCT help? যদি একটা খুব simple example দেখাই. So the example is actually one of my favorite examples here. Let's go to full slide again. It's about this. Sorry. Amazon or their Kindle journal. So when Amazon was having their sales of Kindles, and this is 2008, so they redesigned the Kindle website. So লাল দিকে যেটা আমরা দেখছি সেটা হলো the new website B, and website A was in the আগের ওয়েবসাইটটা ছিল, and ওরা দেখলো, and এই বারটা is the size of their sales. তো ওরা হঠাৎ দেখলো যে যখন they shifted from older website A to website B, there's suddenly an increase in sales. So their question ছিল যে did the website redesign increase sales? Based on this data, it seems obviously নতুন ওয়েবসাইটটার জন্য অনেক সেলস বেড়ে গেছে, right? Now, this is where A/B experimental comes into handy. That আমরা যদি এভাবে জিনিসটা দেখি তাহলে আমরা বুঝতে পারবো না যে আসলে এক্সটার্নাল কোনো ফ্যাক্টরের জন্য সেলস বাড়ছে কিনা। In fact, the truth was in the next slide. October 27, 2008, Oprah Winfrey Oprah said, Kindle is my new favorite thing. And as a result, everyone started buying Kindle. So it wasn't because of the new design. So if it was done properly using A/B experimentation, it would be like this, that jara a website e jacche, 50% of the random people, like randomly 50% ke select kore tara website A dekhabe, and baki randomly 50% ke dekhabe B, the A and B version. And then সেটা যদি আমরা continuously দেখতাম যে actually নতুন website designটা was not the reason for increased sales, because after Oprah said this, both the old design and the new design had an increase in sales. That is the key of RCT, randomized controlled trials, or A/B experimentation, that to exactly find out causality. And in the age of internet, it's so easy to do. Like just this example of a website design, it can be a product design, it can be a policy approach, where certain regions are offered a policy, certain similar regions are not offered a policy for a certain time, to see whether the policy is having an impact. So these are the new sources of data that we're talking about. Now I'm going to pause again. I see there are some comments coming in the chat. Let's check them. Acha. So there's a question from Facebook comment section. Faisal Al-Islam, is there any similarity between data engineers and data scientists? So coming back to the initial question of data analysts, data scientists. So data engineer is the person who is in charge of the collection automation, and collection automation থেকে pipeline করে store করা cloud storage efficiently store করা, কারণ cloud storage can become very expensive if the storage is not done efficiently, and then ওই storage থেকে ডেটাটা নিয়ে এসে ক্লিন করে প্রপার প্রসেস করে অ্যানালিস্টকে দেয়া to start analyzing. That's the work of a data engineer. Data scientist is someone who's part of the whole process. He's part of the, to be a data scientist, you need to have that data engineering skill as well. Acha. Safa Tasnim জিজ্ঞেস করছে, is there a way, any way to collect data from TalkWalker for analysis? Yes. So TalkWalker এর লাস্টের যেটা results পেজটা আছে ওখানে যদি ক্লিক করি, ওখানে যাওয়ার পর ওখানে রাইট ক্লিক করলে ফাইলটা ডাউনলোড করার একটা অপশন দেয়। So there you can actually collect the data. The only limitation they have is ওরা 7 দিন কি 1 দিনের ডেটা পর্যন্ত দেয়। But if you are cheeky, you can always find out more data. Is like, I know someone যে নাকি on a regular basis 7 দিন পর পর যে ডেটা কালেক্ট করে বছর খানেকে ডেটা কালেক্ট করে ফেলছে about a ton. So from Facebook comments, we are having another one from Sharma. What programming languages should economists learn for data analysis? Should we learn both R and Python? What about Stata? Okay, this is actually one of my favorite questions. Karan, so I'll just share something about personal here. I work with both the languages and I've also worked with Stata. One issue with Stata, যেটা আমি অনেক economists আমাকে বলে যে Stata is good, Stata is this and Stata is that. I agree. And unfortunately, the field of economics has been a little slow, I would say, to take up on other softwares. They have been very proprietary or jhule boshe ache with Stata and eViews. But with Stata and eViews, the problem is it's not a open source software. And we use cracks, we use pirated versions. Open source software is সুবিধা কোথায়? R and Python both are open source. Open source softwares are good because everyone can use it for free. And open source also means anyone can contribute to it, which basically means that a researcher somewhere in MIT maybe একটা complicated econometrics analysis করতেছেন, সে আর একটা set of calculations করছে, and তার মনে হয়েছে যে এটা হয়তো অনেকের লাগতে পারে, then he can convert his set of calculations to a package and just offer it in the R package library, and anyone across the world has access to it. I believe, if you ask me, this is personal opinion, and I have no beef against the Stata Corporation, but I believe the future of analysis would be open source softwares, which is where my advice is to invest a little bit of time in either R or Python. Both of them has as good as econometrics and other economics related libraries, as good as Stata. In fact, I've found out libraries যেটা নাকি Stata command কে R command এ convert করতে help করে, because I had times when আমি একটা do file থেকে R code run করছি, so তখন ওইটাই করা লাগছে যে do file এর লাইনগুলো নিয়ে করে R এ run করছি. Also, R can have capability of reading Stata files as well. Now, the next question is, should we learn R or R and Python? দুইটাই শেখা লাগবে নাকি কোনটা শিখবো? So this is another funny thing where আমি দেখছি যে বিভিন্ন data analyst রোলে যুদ্ধ লেগে যায় আর কি, যে পাইথন বেটার না আর বেটার, মোটামুটি আইডেন্টিটি লেভেলে যুদ্ধ লাগে যখন লাগে, and that makes me smile most of the time, because I've been in this field for alhamdulillah for 6 years, and I'll tell you one thing is I need both. Depends on whichever gives me the fastest results. The thing is, coding is not আমি অনেককে দেখি যে a lot of people say that okay, I can code, that means I'm an analyst. No, analytics or data science is it's part of, coding is just one part of it. Asking the right questions, getting having good idea of the statistical tools and the models out, they are more important. A code is a tool, and tool কি বাসায় যে ধরো রুটি বেলার যে ইয়েটা থাকে, যেটা দিয়ে অনেক সময় our parents beat us, or say screwdriver and haturi. Then the point is, you might have a haturi, but that doesn't make you a master carpenter. It's the skill of the field that makes you master carpenter. What I'm trying to say here is any code, any tool is fine. You can learn R শিখলে Python শিখতে বেশি দিন লাগে না. You can learn Python শিখলে R use করতে বেশি দিন লাগে না. They're very similar. Their code lines are quite similar from for each other. What is more important is to know how to use these coding languages to solve your problem. Acha. One last question, I want Talkwalker and Octopus free for all. Well, one thing is I used to be a Commonwealth researcher, and no offense to researchers, but one of the skills you pick up if you're a researcher is finding out free tools. So yes, all 3 of them are free. I've been using them to do my research. So yeah, they're all free. Acha, let's go back again. We'll come back to the questions again a little bit later. So next আমি কিছু modeling নিয়ে কথা বলতাম, what type of analysis models we can use, and specifically again, I mean, since this is a session for budding economists, and I know that when you are studying economics you're already bombarded with regression, so I'm going to spend a little less time on regression and on some new methods out there and how we can use them, or new types of regression actually. So, but before we go there, I have some advice for anyone who's going to work with data in the future as well. বড় বড় করে বাম দিকে লেখা যে things to consider before jumping to model, because one of my experiences, even when I was young and I was early into this field, I was very tool driven. আরে পাইথন কোড পারি কি আর কোড পারি, ডেটা আসছে দামাদাম কোড লিখে ফেলাই to do this modeling. Today when I see a data, I don't do that. I spend some time looking at the data. অনেক সময় মানে it looks a little silly or sometimes it looks funny যে একটা মানুষ জাস্ট স্ক্রিনের দিকে জাস্ট এরকম স্ক্রিনের দিকে তাকায় বসে আছে, একটা এক্সেল ফাইল বা একটা লাইনের দিকে তাকায় আছে যে হচ্ছেটা কি, but it's so important because one of the thing is understanding whether you have a good data or not. And a lot of times we talk about biased data and biased data. I'm not going to talk too much about it, but in experience in real life, no data is unbiased. There's always some collection bias going on somewhere. So good data means whether you know যে ডেটাটা কোথা থেকে আসছে, কি কি লিমিটেশন নিয়ে ডেটাটা এসেছে, and ডেটাটার কোথায় কোথায় biases থাকতে পারে, but at the same time understanding what exactly the data is talking about. So for example, আমি খুব পছন্দ করি একটা example share করতে. It's actually from one of my most favorite books. It's called Factfulness. I love that book. দুইবার পড়েছি, আরেকবার পড়ার ইচ্ছা আছে. It's by Dr. Hans Rosling. Bless his soul, he's not there anymore. But yeah, it's something, if you guys like reading a book, please read this book. So here he talks about how the world is actually a better place than the way we think about it. And there he gives an example that once he was meeting this prime minister from Mozambique, and সে মোজাম্বিকের প্রাইম মিনিস্টারকে একদিন বলছিল যে based on GNI data, GDP data, your country is doing not that good. How মোজাম্বিকের প্রেসিডেন্ট বলতেছিল যে we have done a lot of, like we have become better over time. So তখন সে চ্যালেঞ্জ করলো যে তোমার তো ডেটা যেরকম GNI, GDP এগুলো বুঝছে না যে you're doing good. So তখন মোজাম্বিকের প্রাইম মিনিস্টার he says something very interesting. He's like, মোজাম্বিকে একটা দিন হয়, এটাকে ওরা বলে মার্চ ডে. I forgot the date. It's somewhere in March, definitely, but it's called March Day, where all of Mozambique people march across the streets and everything. They celebrate, I think, some independence or something. I also forgot about that. Sorry, this is my part of ignorance. I should have been able to tell that. But so March Day, shop Mozambican marches. And in that day, the prime minister, what he does is he looks at the shoes of people. Why shoes? Because he explains, in that day, everyone has to wear their own shoes. They cannot borrow other shoes because everyone is marching. And since this is a celebration day, everyone is going to wear the best shoe they have. And what he has seen year by year is the quality of shoe improve. This shows how life has improved in Mozambique. This is a wonderful data, a much more better data than GDP or GNI here. You can ask me why shoe quality is better, because that explains the situation better. If you're trying to ask the question, is Mozambique doing good? So it's very important to understand where you're getting the data from and whether it's a good data. The thing that you're trying to measure, does this data help you to measure that? The second thing is sometimes a simple visualization or a simple exploratory analysis, like simple histogram, simple mean, median, mode, or mode I'm not a big fan of. Mean, median, and 5-number summary, which is first quartile, second quartile, median, first quartile, third quartile, median, interquartile range, standard deviation, variance, mean. These are like simple summaries, can explain a lot of things. So before you go and analyze data, I think these are few advice I want to give, that in the field of data, it's very important to understand where you're getting the data from and how good your data is. Is your data the right data to measure what you're trying to measure? Second is doing some exploratory analysis before going for complicated modeling and all these. I'm going to take a pause here again and see if there are any questions related to these advice. And I'm going to take a sip of water as well. Been talking for quite a long time. If we can start exploring few tools. So first tool is actually clustering. This is when you have large data sets, this tool can come in super handy. What clustering does, এই ছবিতে যদি আমরা মানে বোঝার চেষ্টা করি যে the model is being given a lot of different types of input, and these are different types of fruits. What the model does is based on characteristics of these fruits, it tries to sort them. Like it has sorted the apples together, it has sorted the avocados together, and it has sorted the oranges together. So a k-means clustering, what it does is when you have a large data set and you want to find patterns from the data set, okay, that, you know, is there some groups possible? Is there some different grouping possible, different categorization or classification possible? Then this tool comes in super handy. What k-means clustering do is it tries to it does in statistics something we call very similar to analysis of variance, ANOVA. What it tries to do is it tries to group data points together. What it tries to do is it tries to identify, okay, there might be 4 different groups. So it tries to understand 4 different means. And then it tries to condense the other data together with these means. That is, এটা different grouping করে and group গুলোর মধ্যে মানে between group distance টাকে বাড়ানো and within group distance টাকে কমিয়ে আনা, that is very concentrated but very different groups বের করার চেষ্টা করে. This type of clustering is super handy if you have, say, a large data set, and before running a causality or analysis, you just want to see, are there some hidden groups here, hidden patterns here? Pattern recognition এর জন্য এটা খুব ইউজফুল। যেমন অনেক সময় একটা কাস্টমার বিহেভিয়ার সেগমেন্টেশনের জন্য আমরা প্রায় k-means clustering করি, যে if I have customers purchase data, তখন এটাকে আমরা ক্লাস্টার করে মানে ক্লাস্টার করার চেষ্টা করি যে ওকে, এই কাস্টমারগুলো হয়তো বা এই ধরনের টাইপের বিহেভিয়ার করে, এই কাস্টমারগুলো হয়তো বা এই ধরনের টাইপের বিহেভিয়ার করে, এই কাস্টমারগুলো এই ধরনের টাইপের বিহেভিয়ার করে। The same thing can be done on if you're doing a macroeconomics analysis on across nations. বিভিন্ন নেশনের বিভিন্ন পারফরম্যান্স ওয়াইজ we can actually cluster them, we can actually group them. This could be like, you know, one group of nations যাদের পারফরম্যান্স এরকম, another group of nations যাদের পারফরম্যান্স এরকম, another group of nations যাদের পারফরম্যান্স এরকম. And this performance can be মানে health wise performance, COVID performance, or many other performances there is. So this is actually one very useful tool I suggest researchers to use more and more before running a causality model or anything, to figure out that কারণ অনেক সময় যেটা হয় যে there are maybe very different groups, and if these groups are very different, তাহলে হয়তো বা এই সবগুলো গ্রুপের একসাথে একটা causal model রান করাটা might not be a good idea. Rather, it would have been a better idea to separate the groups, like separate different clusters and running models on each of them, doing research on each of them separately. This is where this tool comes in handy. There are many tutorials, many useful examples of using k-means clustering. You can always, and you can do it in many softwares. I think we have a question coming in. So Farzin, good question. Is this somehow similar to factor analysis? Not really. Factor analysis is something we call dimensionality reduction, like principal component analysis. So dimensionality reduction যেটা করে যে যখন আমার অনেকগুলো থাকে, অনেকগুলো ভ্যারিয়েবলস থাকে, and আমি যদি ভ্যারিয়েবলস কন্টেন্টটা কমাতে চাই, আমি যদি জানতে চাই যে which of the main variables contribute to my y variables major variation, and সেখান থেকে মেজর ভ্যারিয়েবল গুলো বের করে আনতে চাই, দ্যাটস ফ্যাক্টর অ্যানালাইসিস। সেটা আরেকটা ভার্সন ইজ পিসিএ, প্রিন্সিপাল কম্পোনেন্ট অ্যানালাইসিস। সেটা হলো অনেকগুলো কলামকে আমরা একসাথে 3-4টা কম্পোনেন্টে নিয়ে আসতে চাই মিক্স করে, যেটা নাকি maximizes the variation in the data set and the difference between these variables, and yet reduces the number of columns. Clustering is more with the rows, not columns. এটা রো নিয়ে দেখতে চায়, যে ডিফারেন্ট রো গুলো দেখে দেখে এরকম কি করা সম্ভব যে একটা গ্রুপ অফ রো এরকম সিমিলার বিহেভ করতেছে, আরেকটা গ্রুপ অফ রো এরকম সিমিলার বিহেভ করতেছে, আরেকটা গ্রুপ অফ রো এরকম সিমিলার বিহেভ করতেছে, and then এগুলোকে সাব গ্রুপ করে করে চেক করার জন্য that's where clustering comes in handy. আচ্ছা, you're welcome আপু. Moving on, what other tools? This is another tool, but this is actually, I would say, easiest tool to look into. Naive Bayes tool. Naive Bayes tool is useful if, say, you have a data যেখানে নাকি there are only two categories difference, মানে দু ধরনের টাইপের ডেটা আছে, and there is a very clear difference between the two types of data. যেমন এখানে যে এক্সাম্পলটা দেয়া আছে, স্প্যামিং, ইমেল স্প্যাম. So most email applications like তোমার Outlook, Gmail, don't know about Yahoo, and haven't used Yahoo for a long time, so don't know about that. But Gmail, Outlook, they all use these spam filters, and spam filter or a naive Bayes model to use correct. What naive Bayes does is, after putting a lot of data into the model, it tries to figure out যে আচ্ছা এই ওয়ার্ড গুলো থাকলে বা এই ধরনের সাবজেক্ট লাইন থাকলে these would be spam, আর এই ওয়ার্ড গুলো না থাকলে these would be normal emails. যেমন ধরো, I was looking into one of the Google's naive Bayes models, and what I saw is, if your email, like if the email coming to you has like, hello from Nigerian prince, that is a spam by definition. তারপর আবার লটারি ওয়ার্ডটা থাকলে it most of the time goes to spam. আবার যদি থাকে যে অনেকগুলো সিসি and অনেকগুলো টু, that's also a spam. So এরকম, so naive Bayes is like ওরা Bayesian রুলটা ইউজ করে যে if we have the lottery word in the email, what is the probability, like conditional probability, যে given that the word lottery is there, what is the probability that the email is going to be a spam? And if the probability is high, it's going to be sent to spam. If the probability is low, it's going to be kept as an email. So it's a very simple, it's a very, just কিছু না, naive Bayes মানে হলো এটা just Bayes calculation দিয়ে predict করা, that is conditional probability দিয়ে predict করা, যে probability of A given B কত, এটাই বের করা from the data set. Now it's very efficient model যদি তোমার ডেটাটা এমন ভাবে থাকে যে ডেটাটাই দুইটা গ্রুপ আছেন, দুইটা গ্রুপের মধ্যে ডিফারেন্স অনেক discernible, মানে অনেক বেশি ডিফারেন্ট. But if the two groups are very similar to each other, তাহলে naive Bayes has a lot of problems, because probability যদি ধরা থাকে যে probability of A বা probability of spam given lottery is 50%, then you're going to say 50% chance it's a spam, 50% chance it's a real thing. What to do? So this is where naive Bayes fails. Another problem with naive Bayes is it's not a dynamic model, it's a static model, which means if a new data comes in which says has lottery but is not spam, the model is going to crash, because model ওটাকে ঠিকই spam বলে বসে থাকবে, আর এটা মডেলটা চেঞ্জ করবে না until you rerun the model again. But for small analysis, like small, I would say simple analysis, naive Bayes does a good job. Moving on, I mean, no matter where you go, regression will follow you. So there is regression. This is what we call a supervised machine learning model. Though this is the beauty of it, that you don't need to limit yourself to linear regression. We have non-linear regressions like quadratic regression, cubic regression, which are coming up. The usage of, like in the field of data, we use a lot of non-linear regressions, because not all relationships are linear. But the problem becomes like quite a lot if it doesn't follow a specific quadratic relationship or a cubic relationship. Then it becomes really difficult to fit linear models. So for complex relationships, linear models are not really that useful. Another issue in data, like in data science or data analytics, we also use models to make predictions. Now, this is where things become tough with regression, is that regression you should never use to make a prediction beyond the data set. Basically, what I mean is, suppose তোমার ডেটাটা আছে যেখানে নাকি lowest value of the thing that you're trying to predict, your y variable lowest value is 5 and y variable highest value is 1000. So then you should never try to predict 1500. or you should never try to use any of the X variables that would lead you to a prediction of 1500. Why? Because regression is fitting the line based on the existing data that you have. But then when a new outlier comes in, you cannot rely on regression to give a good prediction on that. Regression to use kora hoy mostly. Even in machine learning, we use regression a lot because it's one of the simplest models. And also, it's one of the easiest one to explain. Explanatory power to regression is সবচেয়ে বেশি থাকে. Beyond regression, we also have situations where we need to say a yes or a no answer. This is where I think binary regression comes into play, which is like mostly logistic regression or logic regression and probit regression. What they do is they are very good for yes/no situations, 0-1 predictions. Though logit and probit has a limitation, which is they cannot do yes/no maybe or 0-1-2. So multiple classification আসলে আবার গ্যাঞ্জাম হয়ে যায়, because multiple classification থাকলে you need multinomial probit or multinomial logic, which are very complicated and the accuracy is not that good. But I mean, if you're trying to make predictions in terms of okay, whether a country will do this or that, whether the customer will do this or that, whether the company should do this or that, so A or B situation, then a very useful model is actually logistic regression. So, or even probit, like logic probit gives similar level of accuracy. So, and explainability is similar. So that's useful. Now, so this is about regression to use. Okay, we have a question coming in. Let's go back. Which softwares can we use to do k-means clustering? So actually, for all the tools that I'm showing, there are many softwares out there. Let's actually do one thing. Since the question came up, I mean, to digress, Cody. So first of all, these software, you can always rely on Stata. If you have, then you can always rely on R and Python. They do that. Like, in fact, R and Python can do the job very fast and faster than Stata, I would say. So both of them can do it. There is another software I want to show for anyone who hasn't yet had the time to develop those coding skills, but want to try these things out. I'd suggest this software. It's called Orange Machine Learning, Orange ML. Again, whatever I'm going to show is pure free because I am a cheap person in terms of softwares. So you have Orange Data Mining, and it's a free software. What it does, it kind of does is like, it creates flows like this. So it lets you, drag and drop stuff and create a flow to do analysis. And if you're interested in, let's see, in YouTube, you have Intelligent Machines Snackable. So if needed, I'll share it later as well. So here, if you see, this is like, I have some tutorials on, how to use Orange Machine Learning to do modeling. So feel free to explore that as well. So this is one very useful tool. Besides, there's Python is the R on R Studio. That's it. So let's get back. Do we have any other questions? Let's check. Okay, no more. Take it. Next, if we go for the next two tools, the next one is decision tree. Decision trees are super useful. The basic concept is called recursive partitioning. Decision tree is super useful for modeling complex relationships. Complex মানে যদি একটা singular line বা একটা quadratic line বা একটা polynomial line না হয়, জিনিসটা যদি খুবই doesn't fit into a simple pattern, then decision trees are very useful because what it does, it actually breaks the relationship, breaks the line or the data into smaller and smaller bins to try to fit multiple lines and multiple curves together to reflect a very complex pattern. বাম দিকেরটা is an example of a decision tree. Now this is actually one of the most popular decision trees out there. In fact, a decision tree টাই use করে Google's economist আছে Hal Varian. He actually published a paper using this specific tree to show the importance of decision tree in economics analysis. So the example he used was basically a Titanic data set. The data set was about how many people survived in Titanic and trying to figure out why these people survived and why the others didn't. So the key rule was in this diagram that the first question was, is the sex male? That is the person male? If the answer is no, then there was most of them surviving. In fact, total 36% of the full population, all the people in the Titanic, survived. So basically means that ladies first একটা logic use করা হয়েছিল। আচ্ছা, if the person is male, then the next question was, is the person age greater than 9.5? If the answer is yes, that means they have died, which basically means that ওরা বাচ্চাদেরকে prioritize করার চেষ্টা করছে। ডান দিকে হচ্ছে yes. So if the age is greater than 9.5, then the next question, and this was very, very, it's not hard, it's hurting to look at this at times. The next question was siblings. And if the number of siblings were greater than 2.5, if it's a yes, then the chances of person dying was higher. It was so hard because there were limited number of live votes that ওরা ওই ডিসিশনও নিয়ে লাগছে যে যারা বাচ্চা তাদের যদি ওই ফ্যামিলিতে যদি অনেক বেশি বাচ্চা থাকে তাহলে chances of one of them surviving is less, because each one child per family type of age. So those that didn't have no যদি হয় যে siblings কম থাকে তাহলে they have survived. So this outcome actually shows that the rule that was used when the Titanic was drowning to fill the lifeboats was whether you are a female or if you were a child from single child from the family, or one child per family. So decision trees come in, and they can do regressions as well. So when you don't have a straight line relationship, decision trees can come in handy. They can help a lot with non-linear relationships or not with non-linear relationships. And they're very useful in fraud detection, predicting who's going to default or not, and also in predicting whether a country will be part of a LDC or will be not part of an LDC. And these type of macro analysis is where also decision trees come in handy. They're very good with non-linear and complex relationships. Moving on, the last tool that I'm going to discuss is actually neural networks. Neural network is comparatively the new tool that we are using in data analytics. And I consider that, most of the economists, and if you're a researcher, then neural networks might not be ideal tool to work with their data, because neural network is a black box. That is, you can't explain which variables led to this outcome, which variables affect or marginally impact some outcome. That is not possible using neural networks. But neural networks are useful if you are making predictions, if all your goal is to make very good predictions, because neural networks are capable of making really good predictions. The way a neural network works is you input your X variables or you input data here, then it goes through not one, but many hidden layers where this data gets transformed into different functions in order to maximize these results leads to the most closest output value as per the data. Because every data you have some X's and some Y. It tries to combine the X's, transform them in many steps as to optimize in a way that these X all combine to become the Y that you're trying to make a prediction of. So it's very convoluted. It has many layers, and the transformations happen many times. So it's very hard to point out that whether it's X1 or X2 or this variable that is causing the impact on Y. It's just very good at predicting the Y, which is why neural networks are extensively being used in AI, specifically in automated vehicles, in natural language processing, where neural networks can predict that, okay, given this word, this basically means these, collecting a group of words and predicting these all mean the same thing. Text recognition, character recognition, image recognition. That's where a lot of neural network is being used. So that's from me for the tools part of it. So let me pause again, have a sip of water, and see if there is any other questions coming in, either from the Facebook Live or from those of you who are present here. If not, we can move to the next step. We don't have much left, actually. That's from me. The last thing that I want to share is this, that, this is actually one of my most favorite quotations out there, that the master has failed more times than the beginner has even tried. I share this because of a very simple reason. I have been approached by many people over time to tell me what is the easiest way to get, what is the set steps to become an analyst or to follow data science and everything. The truth is, there is no one way, actually. And if I tell you my experience, I used to be a BBA student from Dhaka University. So for me, quant was when quant or mathematics, or actually I used to fail in maths and like regularly in my school from class 8 to class 10. But yeah, mathematical thinking, statistics, none of them were very strong. Then what happened is I did my master's, and from my master's, when I in my master's I went for operations management, which is also quite management oriented. But there I fell in love with the concept of risk analytics. And there I started studying risk analytics. And then after a point, I got interested in the analytics and data science system. So right now I'm working as a data strategist and a data analyst, as well as, a trainer and a consultant in data science. And I have absolutely no degrees here. What I learned by myself and by struggling in every single step of it. Every time I got stuck, I Googled, tried this, failed, and I failed so many times. Anytime I wanted to run a fancy code, even now, like I'm not going to say that I failed. I said that I failed many times even now. That একটা ডেটা দেখে খুব এক্সাইটেড হয়ে যায়, আর এটাতে এই মডেলটা করলে খুব ভালো আসবে এভরিথিং, মডেলটা করার অর্ধেক রাস্তায় মনে হয় যে ব্যাং মাই হেড অন দ্য ওয়াল, কিছুক্ষণ ল্যাপটপ জড়ায় ভ্যা ভ্যা করে কান্দি যে হচ্ছে না কেন, stuck many times, results ঠিক মতো আসতেছে না. If I give a practical example, কিছুদিন আগে I was very excited to do one data, is this one company who collects financial data and financial news. তো ওদের financial newsletterটা আমি ওদেরকে খুব লাফাতে যে বলেছিলাম যে in for 2 months of financial news collect করে আমাকে দিবা, আমি এখান থেকে সেন্টিমেন্ট অ্যানালাইজ করে, এই যে টেক্সট অ্যানালাইজ করে প্যাটার্নস গুলো দিব, যে what finance is talking about in Bangladesh. সবকিছু পাওয়ার পর যখন অ্যানালাইসিসটা করলাম, যখন রেজাল্টসটা দেখলাম, তখন it was বেলুন ফুটে যাওয়ার মতন একটা সিচুয়েশন ছিল, because nothing came out, because the model didn't work at all. So then that was a failure, then worked on it to fix on it and improve on it. So that's why I say that the master has failed, and I'm not even close to the master. I'm still in the beginner who's just failing and failing and failing. So it's a skill that has a steep learning curve. But I would also say that if you can invest that effort, if you can push yourself to go through these trials and errors, it's also a rewarding field. I love working on this field. Now I see some questions coming up, and also I'm opening the floor for any other questions from Facebook Live. So let's see the questions. Okay. Beginners often feel intimidated by all the tools that are available. Your session. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for, this comment. I would say, yes, there are so many tools and everything. I can do for you is actually, this is why I've done one thing. এটা একটা খুব ভালো অ্যাডভাইস পেয়েছিলাম অনলাইনে, and সেটাই করেছি. So I had many people reach out to me about ভাইয়া কোনটা করব, বা which one should we do, which one should how to start in this area and not. So what I did is I read this advice once, if you repeat an advice many times, then why not write a blog about it? And that's exactly what I did. So if you Google here, Medium @Sakifo, and I'm gonna share this with the organizers of this, so that or a Facebook a link to dite pare. Let me actually share it in the chat here, so that you can share this with the Facebook post as well. So here, if you can tolerate my rantings, so এখানে কয়েকটা article আছে that you can explore. One is actually getting a good idea of what is the difference between big data and analytics. And I believe these are two interesting articles, interesting news sources of data for Bangladesh in the age of internet. দুটো পার্টে আছে. But here, if you wanna, sorry, I'm a Homer Simpson fan. So if you want to really know step by step কিভাবে আগানো যেতে পারে, then this article I wrote actually for answering that question. So anyone who wants to know about this, want to get step by step advice, just feel free to read this. So, and also a lot of times people have common questions regarding data science and analytics. So সেটার জন্য there is another article. Give me a sec. Here, 4 useful questions of starting a career in data science and their answers. Now, again, answers in terms of like, I mean, I'm not the Darvish who's going to give you the right answer. It's just my limited knowledge and the best answer that I can give you. So, yeah, these are the resources. Acha, let's get back to our comments and questions. Acha, from the comment section, Suhaibar is asking, what are some of the good resources to, oh, I think I've already shared them here. So feel free to go through this. I can actually share the article links as well, so that you can, share it in comments there. So this is the one of the article. Then we have the other few articles are this one. And again, I will stress that, not like a human being is supposed to have limited knowledge. So this is to the best of my knowledge. If you find better advice, I'll be more than happy for you. And also would actually appreciate if that advice is shared with me. I can update my advices. So here is the other one. So the floor is open for any other questions coming in. I'm done with my presentation. Sorry, I had a very short one because I didn't want to overburden you on a Friday, and also my energy is almost my battery price Friday office to office করে এখন. But I tried to cover the major issues. If you want to know in more detail, you're more than, I'm going to share this slide with the Economists, the group. They can also share this slide, Economic Studies Center. I'm going to share it with them. And you can reach out to me in my email, LinkedIn, Facebook, and follow up with any resources that you want. But yeah, the floor is open. Any questions, I'm going to stay back and would love to answer. Or from any of the participants of the Zoom session as well. Any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer.
Bhaiya, could you please share with us what your role as a strategist is, as a data strategist?
Okay, so the role of a data strategist is basically, I feel the role of both, I would say, an analyst and connecting the data scientist to the decision maker. So that basically means that I am regularly aware of what are the business questions, or since I am into the trust and safety zone, so what are the trust and safety zone questions, or what are the, company related, like what are the type of decisions the company needs to take in a certain situation. So my journey starts from there, those questions. Then I convert these questions into the question that, okay, what data are out there in my company or within the data we have that can answer these questions? And also ask them that, if we don't have the data, how can we collect it? So if it's the answer that if we don't have that data, then I work with the collection team to build up that data set to start collecting. If we already have that data and I'm converting their decision-making questions to the data that I need, the next point is actually reaching out to my data science team to give me that data. And from that data, I see whether we need to run a model to figure it out, whether a basic analysis would do, what sort of predictions we need, and I communicate that. And from there, and sometimes I communicate, sometimes I run the models myself, because if it's not too complicated, I have enough experience in running models and predictions, I just do them. And then from the insights of the model, I communicate with the decision-making team or also facilitate taking that decision. That's the role of a data strategist. And in the future, I believe this is a role that's going to play very key roles in most organizations. Someone who can link the technical background and the decision-making and also has good experience and understanding of doing both. Acha, from Paramita, to collect data using questionnaire method, on what factors should one focus to make the question in order to get mostly unbiased data? For example, I'm trying to collect data about the impact of COVID on financial conditions of small entrepreneurs. How should I make the questionnaire? Is there any software that will help me make the questionnaire? Okay, so let's try and answer the first question first, and then I'll go to the next one. Okay, Paramita, please do not get offended by what I'm going to say next. In my opinion, I consider questionnaire to be the worst data that anyone can collect, because questionnaire data collect for money, it's a biased data because it has selection bias. That is, the person has decided to answer the question. I know that sometimes it's not possible to get the data any other way. That is why we have to rely on questionnaires. But rethink যে আর কিভাবে এটা বের করা সম্ভব। এরকম কি হতে পারে না যে if these companies are listed, then ওদের কোনো financial data আছে কিনা, or can you individually reach out to these companies and ask for their financials, or any other way you can find this out, because questionnaire method is actually very inaccurate. In fact, most big data analysis or most data-driven organizations have moved away from questionnaires. Maybe direct individual interview is better. Or if you really want to make sure that you get the right data. Now, okay, বলে দিলাম যে question is not that good, but কিভাবে improve করা যায় সেটাও বলি. Let me just, not be just critical. Let me try and solve the problem for you as well. And one way to go about that is actually collect different types of information that connects these companies to their financial condition, right? তো financial condition কিন্তু অনেকভাবে ডেটা কালেক্ট করা যেতে পারে, আর তারপর এই ডেটাগুলো একসাথে করে বোঝার চেষ্টা করে যে কনসিস্টেন্ট অ্যান্সার এসেছে কিনা। যেমন ফাইন্যান্সিয়াল পারফরমেন্স মানে হলো ধরো এই কোয়েশ্চেনটা আসতে পারে কয়জনকে লে অফ করছেন, যদি এটা কারেক্ট অ্যান্সার আসবে না, কত লস, তারপর এই বছরে আর কোনো নতুন প্ল্যান আছে কিনা। Questions like that, this gives you an indication that কোম্পানিটা ব্যাক ফুটে আছে নাকি ফ্রন্ট ফুটে আছে, or what are the new services you're offering. But yeah, in the end, it's very hard to ensure unbiasedness in questionnaire data. You can try multiple questions, জিজ্ঞেস করে তারপর কোচ রানস আলফা একটা কনসেপ্ট আছে ওটা রান করে দেখতে পারো। In terms of designing questionnaires, যদি আমাকে সফটওয়্যার জিজ্ঞেস করো, I stick to the simplest one, which is Google Sheets. Straight, simple to share, easy. There is SurveyMonkey as well. That's quite useful. Either of them is fine. I mean, there is no special questionnaire software that gives you extra edge. Moving to the second part of the question, is regression a good way to analyze the data I'll get from a questionnaire in above case? The question is, could you please suggest a good book on regression where there are good and thorough explanations on different aspects of regression? So in terms of understanding regression, okay, second part of the answer. Okay, good book jodi bolo, amar favorite ekta boi ache regression er jonno. It's called Open Interest Stats. Yeah, there you go. Open Interest Statistics. It's a free book. PDF I can download kore felte parba, and not from illegal channels, but from a proper channel, because author free korei boshe ache. ওরা এখানে রিগ্রেশনটাকে খুব সুন্দরভাবে এক্সপ্লেইন করে। In my opinion, it's actually, and they have some videos here, because the author, মিনে নামে একটা মহিলা, she is a Duke University professor. So she actually has a course as well in Coursera. And here she explains inference to numerical data, introduction to linear regression. And then she has some video for this. And then you can actually she has tutorials as well. You can try these tutorials in R, Python, SAS, data. And also she has the book, and Boyo, I think she has let's go to the book. So Open Interest Statistics here. If you look at the book, let's go to the free PDF. So let's just, yeah, I've already given her enough money, so I don't want to. Just a book. And so much. Wait. Okay, you understand how it goes, right? Go and check the table of contents. You'll find this book to be very handy and very useful. The next thing is the other part of the question you are asking is regression ki question er upor korbo kina. To be honest, to run a good regression model, which is, with a representative data set, I think you need a big enough questionnaire. And I doubt small small firms small entrepreneurs collect করছো অতগুলো পাবা কিনা. There are no hard and fast rules of how big the data file should be, but 100 to 150 rows for and 8 to 10 columns is a minimum for regression. যদি column size বাড়ে তখন row size বাড়তে হবে. So I'm not sure whether regression would be the right. And the other thing is regression, since this is self-reported data, biased during regression কতটুকু valuable হবে, I'm doubtful. But again, I don't know your full questionnaire. Maybe if you want, feel free to connect with me over LinkedIn or Facebook and share your questionnaire. I can look into that questionnaire and give you a feedback on this. Acha. Moving to Ariq Rahman's question, how can the gained knowledge from economics can help us in the sector of analytics? What should be done for people having no prior idea regarding analytics? So যেটা শুরুতে বললাম যে you're talking to someone যে নাকি মানে analytics কি ম্যাথে ফেল করা মানুষ ছিল, আমার কোনো prior idea ছিল না. Prior idea মানে না থাকা মানে যে মানে analytics কাজ করতে পারবে তা কিন্তু না. That's what I'm trying to say all the time, that if you want, you can work from in analytics anytime in your life. Just need to start building up that prior idea. So the second part of the question, my answer is anyone can. So all they need to do is build up that knowledge, and সেটার জন্য আমি কিছু resources already share করলাম. First question, how can the gain knowledge from economics can help us in the sector of analytics? Well, I consider again যেটা আমি মনে করি the future of analytics will be determined by business students coming to analytics and economic students coming to analytics. Why? Because aste aste, besides data scientists, we would need data strategists. So besides looking at a big data set, a lot of times you will need to answer questions like that. আমাদের বিজনেস আমরা এই স্ট্র্যাটেজিটা রান করছি, এই স্ট্র্যাটেজিটা রান করার পর this is the data, which is something I do a lot. And what I do is something simple. যখন এই ধরনের কোয়েশ্চেনস আসে, I look at the post strategy data and pre-strategy data, যেটাকে আমরা বলি simple terms of regression discontinuity or external shocks. So এই ধরনের অ্যানালাইসিস করা একটা কোম্পানির জন্য would be more and more required. And when you have that economics background to do a causality test, to be able to look at the data from an economist's perspective, that's when you not only have the data and the models to analyze, but you can get the insights, like more business related insights from the data, which you can communicate to strategy. Which is why, if you think about it, Google has a chief economist called Hal Varian. So I hope that answers your question. So do we have any other questions?
No, Bhaiya, there's no more questions.
Awesome. So would it be okay if we finish the session today?
Yes.
Thanks a lot to you for sparing us some important and valuable time of yours and guiding us in such a marvelous way. I hope the upcoming and the budding economists will get some valuable information from your session. And thank you once again for providing us such important and essential informations. And I want to thank all the participants here for joining the session. Hope these informations will help you in near future if you're interested in the sector of data analytics. Thank you once again for joining with us. We hope to see you in near future, sharing your valuable information and thoughts with